My wife claimed an emergency business trip. I checked her flights, tracked her lies, exposed a 3-month affair, and filed for divorce without mercy. A Wednesday afternoon. The message was from my wife. Emergency business trip. Don't wait up. Flying out tonight. We will call when I land. Just like that. No details, no explanation. After 8 years of marriage, she had never had an emergency business trip. Her job at the marketing firm was pretty routine. Client meetings, presentations, the usual office stuff. Nothing that screamed emergency travel. I stared at the message for a moment. The timing felt off. She had been acting different lately. Distant, secretive about her phone, working late more often. But an emergency trip on a Wednesday evening, call it instinct or just plain curiosity. But I decided to check. She had mentioned before that her company used some travel portal system for booking flights and hotels. She had complained about it being slow and outdated. I knew she kept her work laptop in the home office. The laptop was still warm. She had been using it recently. I opened the browser and found the travel portal bookmark. Her login credentials were saved. She was not exactly tech-savvy when it came to security. I logged into her account. The screen loaded slowly, just like she had complained about. But when it finally opened, there was nothing. No pending trips, no recent bookings, no emergency travel authorization. The last entry was from 3 months ago, a conference in Dallas that I remembered her attending. My stomach dropped. Why would she lie about a business trip? I closed the laptop and sat back in the chair. This was not adding up. In all our years together, she had never lied about work. Sure, we had had our ups and downs like any couple, but outright deception was not her style, or at least I thought it was not. I decided to wait and see what happened next. Maybe there was some explanation I was missing. Maybe the portal was not updated yet. But deep down, I knew I was grasping at straws. At 7:30 p.m., I heard her car in the driveway. She came through the door carrying a small overnight bag, the same one she used for actual business trips. She was dressed nicely, more than she usually did for traveling. "Hey," she said, barely making eye contact. "I am running really late. The flight is at 9:30. "Which airline?" I asked casually, not looking up from my dinner. "United," she replied quickly. Too quickly. "Where are you headed again?" "Chicago, big client issue," I explained in my text. She had not explained anything in her text, but I let it slide. "How long will you be gone?" "Just overnight. Back tomorrow afternoon." She kissed my forehead, a quick, distracted peck. "I really need to go. Traffic to the airport is going to be terrible." And just like that, she was gone. I watched through the window as her car disappeared down the street. The whole interaction felt rehearsed, like she had practiced the answers. I tried to focus on other things, caught up on some work emails, watched the news, but my mind kept circling back to that empty travel portal. By 9:45 p.m., I was checking flight departure times. United had several flights to Chicago around 9:30, at least that part checked out. But then my phone rang. The caller ID showed her office number. "Hello? Hi, is this Mrs. Johnson's husband?" The voice was familiar, her boss from the firm. "Yes, this is him. I am really sorry to bother you at home, but she did not show up for our client meeting today and she is not answering her phone. Is she all right? Is she sick?" My blood went cold. Client meeting. Yes, the big presentation with the Morrison account. We have been preparing for weeks. When she did not show up, I thought maybe there was a family emergency or something. I felt like the ground was shifting under my feet. She told me she was on an emergency business trip to Chicago. The silence on the other end of the line stretched for what felt like forever. "Sir," her boss finally said, his voice careful and measured. "We do not have any business in Chicago, and definitely no emergency trips scheduled." "I see," I managed to say, though I was not sure I saw anything clearly anymore. "If you hear from her, could you please have her call me? The Morrison account is, well, it is important. Of course, I will have her call you." After I hung up, I sat in the quiet house staring at my phone. My wife had lied to me. She had lied to her boss. She had missed an important meeting and invented an entire business trip to cover for whatever she was really doing. The woman I had been married to for 8 years, the woman I trusted completely, was somewhere else tonight with someone else doing something she could not tell me about. And for the first time in our marriage, I realized I had no idea who I was actually married to. I did not sleep much that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I kept replaying her boss's words. "We do not have any business in Chicago." The lie was so complete, so calculated. This was not some spur-of-the-moment excuse. She planned this. By 6 a.m., I was up making coffee and thinking clearly for the first time in hours. If she was lying about this trip, what else had she been lying about? Those late nights at work, The weekend conferences, the mysterious phone calls she would take in the other room. I decided to find out exactly what my wife had been up to. First stop, our shared bank account. I pulled up the statements online and started going through the last 3 months. Most of the charges were normal: groceries, gas, her usual coffee shop visits. But there were others that made me pause. Dinner at Romano's Italian restaurant on a Tuesday night 2 weeks ago. I remembered that Tuesday. She had said she was working late and grabbed something at the office. Romano's was not cheap. The bill was $93. That is a lot for one person, especially someone who claimed to be eating a quick meal alone. There was another charge from last month, the Hilton downtown, $58 for what looked like room service. On a Saturday afternoon when she told me she was at a work seminar across town, the seminar was free and included lunch. A pattern was emerging, and I did not like where it was pointing. Next, I checked her car's navigation history. She had showed me how to sync it with the app on my phone months ago when she was worried about getting lost driving to her sister's new house. She had forgotten all about it, but the app was still connected. The location history told a story she definitely had not shared with me. Multiple trips to the Marriott on 5th Street. Visits to a wine bar called Vintage that I had never heard of, and most interesting, regular stops at an apartment complex on the other side of town. The same complex, different times. Always on days when she had claimed to be working late or running errands. My hands were shaking as I screenshotted everything. 8 years of marriage, and she had been systematically lying to me for months. I needed more information. Her phone was always locked, but I knew her patterns. She used the same 4-digit code for everything, our anniversary month and day. When she got home, I would find a way to check it. But first, I had a phone call to make. Morrison and Associates, this is Jennifer. Hi, Jennifer. This is from the Johnson account team. I am calling to confirm some details about yesterday's presentation.
Oh, you mean the meeting that got canceled? We were really disappointed. We have been looking forward to seeing the new campaign concepts.
Canceled. I kept my voice professional even though my heart was pounding. Yes, we got a call yesterday morning that Mrs. Johnson had a family emergency and would not be able to make it. We rescheduled for next week. A family emergency, not a business trip. Another lie. This one told to her most important client. I see. Just to clarify, this was a family emergency, not a business trip. That is what we were told. I hope everything is all right with her family. I thanked Jennifer and hung up. My wife had burned her biggest client relationship to cover for whatever she was really doing last night. This was not just an affair. This was someone willing to torpedo her career for another person. Around 2 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from her. Landed safely. Meeting's going well. Home around 4 p.m. tomorrow. I stared at the message. She was doubling down on the lie, even adding fake details about meetings. The audacity was almost impressive. I texted back, glad you are safe. How is the weather in Chicago? Her response came quickly, cold and windy, typical Chicago weather. I checked the weather in Chicago, 72 degrees and sunny, not cold, not windy. That afternoon I made another discovery. While looking for our insurance documents in her desk drawer, I found a receipt she had apparently forgotten about. Dinner for 2 at Chat Laurent, the expensive French place downtown last Friday night. The same Friday she had said she was having drinks with her co-workers after work. The receipt was for 2 meals, 2 glasses of wine and dessert, total $168. But here is what really caught my attention. It was paid for with her personal credit card. The card I thought she only used for emergencies. I pulled up that credit card statement online. She had been using it regularly for months, hotels, restaurants, even what looked like gifts from jewelry stores. All charges I had never seen because they were not coming from our joint account. She had been funding a completely separate life with money I did not even know she was spending. By evening, I had assembled a pretty clear picture: the apartment complex visits, the hotel charges, the expensive dinners for 2, the elaborate lies to cover her absences. My wife was having an affair and she had been planning it carefully for months. The question now was not whether she was cheating. The question was what I was going to do about it. I spent the rest of the evening planning my next move. Because if she thought she could lie to my face and make me look like a fool, she was about to learn that I do not play games I do not intend to win. She walked through the door Thursday evening at exactly 4:15 p.m., rolling her overnight bag behind her and wearing the same clothes she had left in. Her hair was perfect, her makeup fresh. For someone who had supposedly been in business meetings all day, she looked remarkably put together. "Hey honey, I am back," she called out like nothing had happened, like she had not just spent 24 hours lying to everyone in her life. I was sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop open, deliberately visible spreadsheets on the screen. Welcome home. How was Chicago? Exhausting, she sighed, dropping into the chair across from me. The client was really demanding. We barely had time to eat. I nodded sympathetically. That is rough. What hotel did they put you up in? The Hyatt, downtown location. Nothing special. Interesting. The Hyatt. I checked. Her credit card had no charges from any Hyatt in Chicago or anywhere else for that matter. Did you get a chance to try any good restaurants? You know how much you love trying new places when you travel. She hesitated for just a moment. We just ate at the hotel restaurant. Room service mostly. Too busy to go out. Room service on a business trip. That must have been expensive for the company. Well, the client was covering meals, so it was not a big deal. I smiled and turned my laptop screen toward her slightly. That is funny. I was just looking at our credit card statements to do some budgeting, and I saw this charge from Romano's 2 weeks ago. $93. I thought you said you worked late that night. Her face went pale, but she recovered quickly. All right, I met with a potential client there. It was a business dinner. A potential client? That is great. Which company? She fumbled for words. It is still early stages. I do not want to jinx it by talking about it too much. Of course, I said, making a note on my laptop. I will make sure not to count it as personal spending then, since it was business. I could see her trying to figure out if that was good or bad for her story. So tell me about the Chicago client, I continued, closing the laptop and giving her my full attention. What kind of problem were they having that required an emergency trip? It was their marketing campaign, last-minute changes to the messaging, really technical stuff that had to be handled in person. That does sound urgent. It is a good thing they had someone available to fly out on such short notice. I bet the plane was packed with business travelers. Actually, it was not too crowded. I got lucky with an aisle seat on United, right? That is what you said yesterday. Yes, United. I pulled out my phone and showed her the screen. That is weird. I was looking at United's website earlier because I was thinking about booking a trip for us, and they do not have any direct flights from here to Chicago on Wednesday nights. Their last flight to Chicago is at 2:30 p.m. She stared at the phone screen. There must have been a connection, maybe through Denver. A connection for an emergency trip? That seems inefficient. Her voice got defensive. I do not plan the travel arrangements. The company books everything, right? Of course. I put the phone away. Speaking of which, your boss called here last night. The color drained from her face completely. He was worried because you missed the Morrison presentation. Apparently, it was pretty important. She opened her mouth, then closed it. I could practically see her brain scrambling for an explanation. There was a misunderstanding, she finally said. I thought the presentation was moved to next week. That is strange. He said they called Morrison and told them you had a family emergency, not that the meeting was rescheduled. Well, someone from the office must have mixed up the message. I leaned back in my chair. So, to clarify, you went on an emergency business trip to Chicago, but your boss did not know about it, and someone told your biggest client that you had a family emergency instead of a business trip. She was quiet for a long moment. There was obviously some miscommunication at the office, obviously. I stood up and walked to the kitchen counter. I am making dinner. How does pasta sound? That sounds good, she said quietly. As I started pulling ingredients from the cabinet, I continued the conversation in the same casual tone. Oh, by the way, I checked the weather in Chicago today. Looked like it was beautiful, 72 degrees and sunny. You said it was cold and windy when you texted me. It must have changed. Weather is unpredictable. Absolutely unpredictable. I turned around to face her. Kind of like how you paid for dinner at Chat Laurent last Friday with your personal credit card but told me you were having drinks with coworkers. She stood up abruptly. Why are you going through my credit card statements? I was not going through anything. I was doing our monthly budget like I do every month. Same as always. I kept my voice calm and reasonable. But that is an interesting question. Why do you have charges on your personal card that I do not know about? I use that card for personal expenses sometimes. $168 dinners are personal expenses. I can spend my own money however I want. Of course you can. I'm just curious who you are spending it with, because a $168 dinner for one person seems excessive, even for you. She grabbed her purse from the counter. I do not have to justify every purchase to you. You are absolutely right. You do not. Just like I do not have to pretend I believe obvious lies. She stopped at the kitchen doorway. What is that supposed to mean? I turned back to the stove and started boiling water for the pasta. It means I know you were not in Chicago yesterday. I know you have been lying to me for months. And I know you think I am stupid enough to believe whatever story you come up with next. The silence stretched between us for nearly 1 minute. "We need to talk," she finally said. I did not turn around. "No, we really do not, because talking requires honesty, and you have proven that is not something you are capable of anymore." I heard her heels clicking across the kitchen floor, then stopping behind me. "It is not what you think." I finally turned to face her. "Then tell me what it is." And for the first time since this whole thing started, she looked me directly in the eyes and said nothing. Because we both knew that whatever came out of her mouth next would either be the truth that ended our marriage, or another lie that proved it was already over. She stood there for what felt like forever, her mouth opening and closing like she was testing out different lies before settling on one. Finally, she sat back down at the kitchen table. "You are right," she said quietly. "I was not in Chicago." I turned off the stove and leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "No kidding. I was with someone. I figured that much out." "Who?" She looked down at her hands. "Someone from work, not my company. A client." "Which client?" "You do not know him." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Try me. After 8 years of marriage, I think I know most of your professional contacts. His name is Ryan. He works for Meridian Consulting. We have been working on a project together for the past 6 months. Meridian Consulting." I had heard her mention them before. They were one of her company's biggest accounts. "And you have been sleeping with him for how long?" She flinched at the directness. "It is not just sleeping together. It is more complicated than that." "How long?" 3 months. I nodded slowly. "So when you said you were working late all those nights, you were actually with him? Sometimes the apartment complex on Cedar Street. That is his place." Her eyes widened. "How did you know about that?" "Your car's GPS history. Technology is amazing these days." I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the screenshots I had taken. "Let us see. You have been there 12 times in the past 2 months. Always between 6 p.m. and 10 p.m. Always on days you told me you were working late or running errands. You have been tracking me. I have been trying to figure out why my wife has been lying to me." Turns out the answer was pretty straightforward. She was quiet for a moment, then looked up at me. "I never meant for this to happen, but it did happen for 3 months. That is not an accident or a mistake. That is a choice you made every single day for 90 days. I was going to end it. When, before or after you destroyed your career by missing the Morrison presentation. That was a mistake. I lost track of time." "And you lost track of time?" I interrupted. "You have been preparing for that presentation for weeks. You talked about it every night at dinner, but you lost track of time." She did not answer. I pulled out the receipt I had found in her desk. "Shalaron, last Friday. $168. Was that when you were going to end it?" "We were talking about our situation over a $168 dinner." "That is some expensive talking." I set the receipt on the table in front of her. "What about the hotel charges? The Hilton downtown? Was that more talking?" Her face was red now. "You had no right to go through my personal things." "Personal things? We are married. We share a bank account. We share a life. Or at least I thought we did. It is not that simple. Actually, it is that simple. You made a choice to have an affair. You made a choice to lie about it. You made a choice to risk your job, our marriage, and everything we have built together. For what? For some guy you met at work. He understands me in ways that you do not." I stared at her. "He understands you. What does that even mean? He listens to me. He appreciates me. He makes me feel special. And I do not. Not like he does." I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. "So, this is my fault. I drove you to cheat because I do not make you feel special enough." "That is not what I said. That is exactly what you said. You are blaming me for your affair. I am not blaming you. I am trying to explain why it happened. No, you are trying to justify it. There is a difference." I walked over to the table and sat down across from her. "Let me ask you something. When you were in bed with him yesterday, when you were supposed to be on a business trip, did you think about me at all? Did you think about what this would do to us?" She looked away. "Please do not make this harder than it already is." "Harder for who?" "For you. You think this is hard for you? I never wanted to hurt you, but you did it anyway. For 3 months, you chose to hurt me every single day." We sat in silence for several minutes. I could hear the clock ticking on the wall, the hum of the refrigerator, the sound of cars passing outside. Normal life continuing while mine fell apart. "What happens now?" she finally asked. "Now you tell me everything. All of it. No more lies. No more half-truths. If you want any chance of me not making this as difficult as possible for you, you tell me the complete truth. What do you want to know?" "Everything. How it started. Where you have been meeting how many times, whether you love him, whether you were planning to leave me for him, all of it." She took a deep breath. "It started at the quarterly review meeting in March. He was presenting their new marketing strategy and we got to talking afterward. He asked me to coffee to discuss some ideas and you said yes. It seemed professional at first, just work stuff, but we started texting about non-work things. He was going through a divorce and I do not know. I felt like we were just friends. When did it become more than friends? About 1 month later, we had dinner after a late meeting. We both had a few drinks and it just happened. In his apartment, in his car, actually in the parking garage at his office. The image hit me like a slap. Jesus, I know how it sounds. It sounds like you had sex with another man in a parking garage while I was at home thinking you were working late. I am sorry. Do not apologize to me. This is not something you can apologize for. Then what do you want from me? I looked at her across the table. This woman I had been married to for 8 years. The woman I trusted completely. The woman who just admitted to betraying that trust in the most fundamental way possible. I want you to understand that as of right now, our marriage is over. I want you to understand that every mutual friend, every family member, everyone we know, is going to find out exactly what you did. I want you to understand that your career is probably finished because you cannot balance a secret relationship with basic professional responsibilities. Her face went white. You cannot tell people about this. I can and I will, because the truth is going to come out anyway. Your boss already knows something is wrong. The Morrison account knows you lied to them. How long do you think it will take before someone puts it together? Please do not ruin my life. I stood up from the table. I did not ruin your life. You did. I am just not going to help you cover it up anymore. And with that, I walked out of the kitchen, leaving her sitting alone with the consequences of her choices finally catching up to her. I did not sleep in our bedroom that night. Instead, I took the couch and spent the evening making phone calls and sending emails. If she thought she could control the narrative of our marriage falling apart, she was about to learn otherwise. The first call was to my brother. He had never been a huge fan of my wife anyway. Always said she was too concerned with appearances and not enough with substance. Turns out his instincts were better than mine. I knew something was off, he said after I told him everything. The way she acted at Dad's birthday party last month, always on her phone, barely participating in conversations. I figured it was work stress, but this makes more sense. I need a favor, I said. Can you recommend a good divorce attorney? Someone who does not mess around. Absolutely. I will text you 3 names, all sharks. You want someone who is going to protect your interest while she is busy figuring out how to spin this. Next, I called her sister. That conversation was more complicated. They were close, and I knew she tried to defend her at first. There has to be some explanation, she said after I laid out the facts. This does not sound like her. I thought the same thing, but the evidence does not lie. Credit card statements, GPS tracking, the lies to her boss. It is all documented. What are you going to do? I am going to divorce her, and I am going to make sure everyone knows why. Do not you think that is a little harsh? Maybe you two could work it out with counseling. Or she had sex with another man in a parking garage while I was at home thinking she was working late. Then she looked me in the eye for 3 months and lied about it. There is no counseling for that. The line went quiet. I had no idea it was that bad. It is that bad, and I wanted you to hear it from me before she calls you crying about how mean I am being. By Friday morning, I contacted our close friends, both sets of parents, and anyone else who mattered. I kept the details clinical and factual. No emotional outbursts, no dramatic storytelling, just the facts. She had been having an affair for 3 months. She had lied repeatedly to cover it up, and our marriage was over. The reactions were pretty much what I expected. Shock, disappointment, and a lot of, I never would have thought she was capable of this. Our friend group split predictably. A few people tried to stay neutral, but most were pretty clear about where their loyalties lie. But the real consequences started at her workplace. Her boss called me Friday afternoon. I wanted to follow up about our conversation the other day. Has your wife explained what happened with the Morrison meeting? She has, and I think you should know what has really been going on. I told him everything. The fake business trip, the lies about client meetings, the pattern of deception that had been affecting her work performance. I was careful to stick to facts that impacted her job. I was not trying to destroy her personally, just making sure her employer understood why their star employee had suddenly become unreliable. This explains a lot, he said when I finished. She has been distracted lately, missing deadlines, making excuses. We thought it was burnout, but this makes more sense. What happens now? Well, lying to clients about family emergencies is a serious issue. And if she has been using company time for personal relationships, that is another problem. We will have to investigate. I understand. I just thought you should know the truth. I appreciate your honesty. This cannot have been an easy conversation to have. That evening, she came home from work looking defeated. Word had clearly gotten around the office quickly. "You told my boss," she said. "It was not a question. I told him the truth. He asked me directly what happened and I answered. I am probably going to be fired. That is between you and your employer. But yeah, lying to major clients tends to have consequences." She sat down heavily on the couch. "My whole life is falling apart. Your whole life fell apart when you decided to cheat on me. I am just making sure I am not the only one dealing with the consequences. This is vindictive. No, this is honest. Vindictive would be calling Meridian Consulting and telling them their consultant is sleeping with married clients. I have not done that yet." Her face went pale. "You would not. Try me. You think Ryan's company wants that kind of liability? A consultant who cannot maintain professional boundaries with married clients? That is a lawsuit waiting to happen. Please do not destroy his career too." His career? What about mine? What about the reputation I have built over 8 years of marriage? What about the friendships we have lost because you could not keep your legs closed? She started crying. "I made a mistake. You made a choice. Every day for 3 months you chose him over me. You chose lying over honesty. You chose your affair over our marriage. Those were not mistakes. They were decisions. I want to try to fix this." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Fix what?" "There is nothing left to fix. You burned it all down. We could go to counseling. We could work through this." "Work through what?" "Trust. How do I trust someone who looked me in the eye every night and lied? Respect. How do I respect someone who risked everything we built for a parking garage hookup? Love. How do I love someone who chose another man over me for 3 months?" She did not have an answer for any of that. "Here is what is going to happen," I continued. "You are going to move out this weekend. You can go stay with your sister or Ryan or whoever. I do not care. You are going to get your own lawyer because mine is already working on the divorce papers and you are going to accept that our marriage is over. What if I refuse? Then this gets a lot more public and a lot more ugly. Right now, only people who matter to us know what happened. But I have documentation of everything, credit card statements, GPS history, text messages. I can make this the most public divorce in town if you want to fight me on it. You are not the man I married. You are right, the man you married was naive enough to trust you. The man you married would have believed your lies and tried to work it out. The man you married would have put your feelings ahead of his own dignity." I stood up and looked down at her. "Lucky for me, that man does not exist anymore. So that is it. 8 years of marriage and you are just throwing it away. I am not throwing anything away. You already did that. I am just refusing to pretend it did not happen." She cried for a while after that. But I had run out of sympathy. You do not get to betray someone and then expect them to comfort you about the consequences. By Sunday night she was gone. Most of her clothes, her personal items, her car. The house felt empty, but not in a sad way. In a clean way, like I had finally gotten rid of something toxic that I had not even realized was poisoning everything around it. And for the first time in months, I slept through the entire night without waking up wondering what she was really doing when she said she was working late. 6 weeks later, the divorce was final. She had tried to drag it out, hoping I would change my mind or that time would make me more forgiving. She was wrong on both counts. Her career was over at the marketing firm. They had quietly let her go after the Morrison account pulled their business entirely. Apparently, having your account manager lie about family emergencies to cover up affairs does not inspire confidence in professional relationships. Ryan did not fare much better. Word had gotten back to Meridian Consulting about his involvement with a married client. They transferred him to their Portland office, basically corporate exile. His divorce finalized around the same time as mine, costing him half his assets and full custody of his kids. She tried calling me a few times during those weeks, apologizing, explaining, pleading. I never answered. There was nothing left to discuss. The final time I saw her was at the courthouse when we signed the papers. She looked tired, older somehow. The confident woman who had walked out with her overnight bag 2 months earlier was gone. "I hope you are happy," she said as we left the building. "I am not happy, but I am free, and that is more than I had when I was married to you. Do you ever think about what we could have been if this had not happened?" I stopped walking and turned to face her. What we could have been. We were something. We were married for 8 years. We had a life together. We had trust and respect and love. And you traded all of that for 3 months with a guy you barely knew. I know I made mistakes. Stop calling it mistakes. You made choices every single day. You chose him over me. You chose lying over honesty. You chose your affair over our marriage. Own it." She was quiet for a moment. I miss what we had. You should have thought about that before you threw it away. That was the last conversation we ever had. 3 months after the divorce, I got a promotion at work. Turns out that, not spending every evening wondering what my wife was really doing, freed up a lot of mental energy for actually focusing on my career. I bought a smaller house closer to downtown, started going to the gym again, took up hiking, reconnected with friends I had lost touch with during the marriage. People asked if I missed being married. The honest answer was no. I missed being married to the woman I thought she was. But that woman never actually existed. The real woman was someone who could look me in the eye every night and lie without flinching. I ran into her sister at the grocery store about 6 months later. She told me my ex-wife was working at a smaller firm now, making less money, still struggling to rebuild her reputation. She was single. Apparently, her relationship with Ryan had fallen apart once they did not have the excitement of sneaking around. "She asks about you sometimes," her sister said. "Tell her I'm doing great." And I was. For the first time in years, I was exactly where I wanted to be. No lies, no deception, no wondering what was real and what was performance. I learned something valuable from the whole experience. You cannot save a marriage when only one person wants to be married, and you cannot build a life with someone who is willing to destroy it the moment something more exciting comes along. Some people might call what I did harsh. I call it having standards. She made her choice when she decided to cheat. I made mine when I decided not to accept it. And 8 months later, I was still completely comfortable with the choice I made.